Hello, and welcome to another edition of Qmailtoaster Video Magazine. I'm your host, Jake Vickers. In this edition, we're going to cover a common question we see on the mailing list quite a bit, and that has to do with a missing Perl module for Spamassassin. We run a newer version of Spamassassin in the Qmailtoaster project, and as Spamassassin gets more mature and it adds more features and options and things of that nature, what happens is you have to add a lot of Perl modules to keep up to do mail checking, because we all know that spammers, they find a new way to get spam through. And naturally, the spam scanners, like Spamassassin, have to adapt to be able to try and filter these mails out for you. Just as it's exactly what you're expecting it to do, is score spam for you. And the one module that we see asked about on the list all the time happens to be the Spamassassin DomainKeys package. And the reason we see it asked on the mailing list a lot is because that package is not included in Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which also means it's not included in CentOS 5 or CentOS 4 Linux. If you're running another distro, such as Fedora or Mandriva, you're probably running a newer, you have a newer repo available to you, so you probably do have that package available. So this video mainly pertains to the people who are running Red Hat Enterprise or CentOS. And you can tell that you don't have this module just by real quickly looking at your spam logs. And so we will get a quick check here. Cursor in the right place. And you can see as the log scrolls by that there is quite a bit of information here. Let me go ahead and stop it. And you can see here, can't locate mail domain keys message.pm. And this is the error that's going to jump right out and tell you you're missing the domain keys Perl module. And we're going to need to install that. And like I said, it's not available in the standard repos for CentOS or for Red Hat Enterprise. So we're going to have to go out and we're going to have to add an additional module we're going to have to add an additional repo so that we can get a new version of this. And the repo we're going to use is going to be the RPMForge repo. Now, the RPMForge repo, you can go to rpmforge.net and you normally get a web page there. But for some reason for me today, I seem to be having a little bit of an issue getting their web page to come up. So I actually had to get to their repo by going into DAG's web page. Like I said, just for some reason for me, the web page is not working today. The DNS is not resolving. So I had to go over here to DAG's repo. And you're going to get the same exact repo as DAG is he's a member of the RPMForge repo. So any packages he creates do get put in that repo for you. And this is just another web page you can go to get the RPMForge repo installed on your server. Normally, like I said, you'd go to rpmforge.net, and if you click through and follow the instructions, you'll be able to install the repo in pretty short order. And I'm going to show you how to install the repo here, but I'm going to use DAG's web page, but the link will be the same. In the past, using this command that he gives you has not worked for me personally. What I always had to do is I always had to copy the link, and then I would have to wget it, and then I would be able to install it. But you can try the wget command that he does supply on his web page. That may work for you. But once you run that simple command, or those couple simple commands that I just showed you there, you now have the RPMForge repo installed on your computer. And let's just go ahead and solve this problem we're having with our Perl module. And it's going to be a real simple one. We're just going to do yum install perl-mail-domain and keys. And notice in here that in perl-mail-domain keys that the M for mail, the D for domain, and the K for keys is in capitals. That is important, otherwise you won't get the package. And that's just because of the naming convention that Perl normally uses. Normally this package would be called mail : domain keys. And since you don't use colons in RPM repos, they get converted over to hyphens for these repos here. Let's go ahead and get this module installed. Now you're asking, hey, why shouldn't I just go into CPAN, for those of you who are in the Linux know, and use CPAN to get it? Well, there is Yum's holding the lock. Looks like Yum's updating already in the background. Seems kind of interesting. It should clear up here in a second. But those of you in the Linux know, you may be asking, hey, why wouldn't I install this using CPAN? Well, you can very well do that, and it probably will work for you. You may get some errors when you go to install the package, the Spamassassin package, though, that it's still missing the Perl module that you need, or a couple Perl modules that you need, even though you know that they're installed because you installed them from CPAN. And the reason for that is RPMs cannot query installed CPAN modules if you install them through the CPAN. So when you install an RPM, it has no clue that you installed this module already using CPAN, because it can only check the RPM database. So I'll kind of say that again. When you install an RPM, the only way it knows you have a Perl module installed is by querying the RPM database, which has absolutely nothing to do with the Perl modules you installed using CPAN. They don't get added into the RPM database that way. So you'll get an error showing that because, well, it can't see that you have that Perl module installed. And that's the reason that we suggest you use something like rpmforge.net, or you can use any other repo that you feel is the right fit for you. But we here at the Qmailtoaster project, I think I'm gonna start officially pushing the RPM Forge repo, just because Spamassassin and one or two other packages are starting to require some modules or some other packages that are not included in the CentOS repo by default. And like I said, we are using them for the CentOS installations. We don't use them for the Fedora installations just because the RPM Forge does not support the newer versions of Fedora. And the main reason behind that is because the newer versions of Fedora, well, you have those newer packages anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, now that we've kind of taken a little side trip there, you can see that we installed the package, and it installed looks like three different dependencies to make sure that everything installed correctly. And now it's just going to be a simple qmailctl stop. Give it a second or two to make sure it's all stopped. And we can go ahead and we can do a stat, make sure everything's not running. And then we'll do a start. And give it a second or two. And then check the stats again just to make sure everything is up and running. And now you should see that error go away in your logs, which we can double check those real quick. Let's go into var log qmail spam and current, and the error should go away now that it's started back up. I probably shouldn't cat it. I should probably tail it just to get the last few lines. And it looks like we're missing crypt open SSL now. So this is another module that we'll need to install just to get some of these errors to go away for our Qmailtoaster installation. And this one's actually going to be pretty easy too, because now that we have the RPM Forge repo installed, it's just going to be a simple yum install perl crypt open SSL. And notice in here once again that we have a typo. I put a equal sign instead of a hyphen. Perl-crypt, the C in crypt is capitalized, -open, the O in open is capitalized, SSL is capitalized, and I think the package we need is the RSA, so -RSA. And we'll go ahead and we'll get that package installed real quick. And now that should install a couple other dependencies as well, just to make sure we have them all. Looks like it's already installed. All right, let's do a check. And you can always check to see if Spamassassin is working correctly by running this command right here. Spamassassin-d-lint. The -d, and notice that D is capital, is for debug. And --lint means it's basically going through your configuration files and delinting them. That's just kind of a play on words there. It's going to look in your configuration files and make sure there's no errors and make sure everything's working correctly. And we'll scroll back up in our scrollback buffer here. Get back to our top command. And if you'll notice, here's where I ran the command. And up above was the error. But by scrolling through the scrollback buffer here, we're not showing any errors in the debug. So it looks like that was an error from before that did get filled as a dependency for domain keys. And what you want to look for in the lint files here is you'll see debug, and if there's anything wrong, you'll see warn here. Or you may see the word error if there's just a flat-out error. You may see some warnings, and some of them may be okay, but the errors usually are pretty big issues that you will need to fix. And usually at the bottom here, if you do have any errors, it would show you down at the very last line if you had any major errors that would cause it to not run. And here we we are not showing any of those errors, so it's pretty safe to assume that Spamassassin is running correctly, and that we did fix that one Perl module. And that's pretty much going to be it. Spamassassin should be running fine now. It doesn't hurt to every once in a while just do a double check on Spamassassin, though, especially if you're going to be adding rules or changing configuration files. Anytime you change a configuration file or add another Perl module or change anything in Spamassassin, it's a real good idea to run this lint command, because that'll just go through and it double checks for things like typos, or if you try and add something into Spamassassin but you're missing a package or missing a portion of a package to actually make it work, then the lint command will definitely show that to you and let you know, hey, right off the bat that, hey, you're missing something. So that's going to conclude this video. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week.